to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock.
Good morning. Happy Monday. Hopefully you had an amazing weekend. Thank you so much for taking this time out of your life to listen to my podcast. If you're like, who are you? My name is Mandie Brice. I'm the host of this Bold Moves podcast, and I love to share the inspiring stories of people who have taken risks, aka bold moves, outside of their comfort zones and have lived to tell the stories that have paid off in some way or another. This week is no exception. I chatted with Angela Murray, and she has had quite the tale. I think that if the U-Haul company had like a frequent user deal, that she probably would have gotten a couple free U-Hauls for it. And I now will always think of her when I hear the Sanford & Sons jingle. Anyway, if you're wondering why any of that is, listen on for her story. I think you will love it. And yeah, that's what I have for you today. Without any further ado, here is the fun time I had chatting with Angela Murray. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bold Moves podcast. Today, I am chatting with Angela Murray. Welcome to the show, Angela.
Thank you so much, Mandie. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. So, of course, you know the name of the show, and you wouldn't be here if you hadn't taken some risks in your life. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and some of the things that you have done that are maybe a little off the beaten path?
Okay. Well, it started probably when I was about 24 years old. I had just graduated college. I was living in Pittsburgh. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, so not too far outside of the city. And I was working as an administrative assistant for a big insurance company. And it seemed like the opportunity to have a career there was a pretty good opportunity, except for at the time, Pittsburgh was still a little bit of a, I don't want to say backwards town, but it wasn't very progressive. So women were the assistants. They weren't holding the high level positions. And I had big aspirations, I wanted to hold a higher level position. So I had approached them and said, hey, listen, I'd like to be considered for a sales opportunity. And they literally laughed at me. And I was like, you know what? Maybe this isn't going to work out.
Not to ask your age, but how long ago was this?
This was 20 years ago. Yeah. Okay. So actually it was 22 years ago. Yes. I'm 44, which I don't mind saying. So it's 22 years ago. And it was the attitude, the mindset, just everything about it just didn't feel right. And my mother had recently passed away, so I was more than happy to take an opportunity to kind of get out of town. So my friends and I happened to go on vacation, and we were in South Florida. And I got back from vacation on a Sunday. On that Monday, actually is when I had the conversation with these. I was like, listen, I'd like to take this further. I'd like a sales opportunity.
Yeah.
And they laughed at me. And I literally got on the phone. I called U-Haul. I rented a U-Haul truck. 2 weeks to that day, I gave my notice. And then I got a plane ticket. I went down to South Florida. I interviewed. I got a recruiter. I got a realtor. I found an apartment. I found a job. I came back 2 weeks later. I packed up that U-Haul. And I got my cat, and we moved to Miami. And I actually got a job. Yeah, I got a job in sales, so I did do that. So that was my first, I guess, big, bold move that kind of took me way out of my comfort zone. So yeah, my cat and I, we were hanging in Miami, watching Sanford & Son because I couldn't afford cable. I insisted on living on the water. Honestly, waterfront is incredibly expensive in Miami. Yeah. So the neighborhood was not so great. But hey, I was in Miami. I was on the water. I was starting my life. It was a good moment. Yeah.
And that was my first thing. Yeah. I'm sure that looking back at that now, you probably have an above average fondness for Sanford & Sons and probably some of the ridiculous things that happened when you were living there. Like, you probably loved it and hated it at the same time, I imagine.
Absolutely. It was me, Fred Sanford, my cat, and corn. I was eating like corn and potatoes, and I can hear that.
I love that.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Yeah.
All right. So that was bold move number one, and I know that there are more. So what's
more?
Next? Yeah.
Yeah. So a few years, and it was actually a great company to work for. The people were great. The job was great. Everything was great. But something in me just was there's something else. There's something else. There's more for you. There's just something different. Maybe not more. It was just different. And I couldn't figure it out at the time. You know, I was at this point, I think I was like 28, and no, I was not 20. I was 24. Sorry. My timelines are. And so when you're a young woman, you're trying to figure out who you are, what you want out of life. I've never really had that path of wanting to get married and have children. So that path wasn't actually set for me. So I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? I had been dating this guy who was from Costa Rica. So we're like, why not? Let's go to Costa Rica. Well, you know, what's the worst that could happen? We're young. We can recover. If it doesn't work out, let's just go for it. So we got a storage unit, packed up all our stuff. So my boyfriend at the time, myself, and my cat. Once again, this cat is everywhere with me. Well-traveled cat. We ended up in Costa Rica. We got an apartment in San Jose. I got a job. I was teaching English grammar to Philip Morris executives. And it didn't last very long, though. The boyfriend that I had at that time turned out to be a drug addict, and he was in Costa Rica without his drugs. So things got a little weird. And I didn't speak Spanish, so I was kind of on my own on that. So I was like, you know what? It's time to go back to Miami. So I got my cat. I went back to Miami. I'm not sure what he did. I left him there. And then comes, I guess, my next bold move. So now I'm back in Miami, figuring out, okay, well, now what am I going to do? I was staying with a friend at the time because now I'm like, I need to make my next moves.
Sure.
So I ended up getting another sales job. Well, it turned out that the company I had worked for previous to going to Costa Rica, I had a non-compete with them. And the owner of the company was enforcing it very strictly. So I had to move within, I don't remember what it was, 70 miles, 150 miles, whatever, outside of Miami. So this company happened to have a branch in Tampa. So I'm like, hey, my cat's name is Harley, by the way. I'm like, hey, Harley, want to go to Tampa? So we moved to Tampa, and I started working there. Again, it was another sales job. It was a good job. I had a nice apartment. The people I worked with were nice. There wasn't any problem that stood out, except I'd wake up every day. Again, that nagging sensation that something just isn't right.
Sure.
So I got another U-Haul. I packed it up. I went back to South Florida because I'm like, listen, if I'm going to try and figure out what's going on with my life, I at least want to be around people that I know and that I love.
Yeah,
at this point, I had developed, a nice community down in South Florida, and I wasn't ready to come back to Pennsylvania yet. So I'm like, let me just kind of feel this out and see what's going on. So I actually, you're going to laugh at this. I went back to work for the first company. When I first moved to Miami, I went back to work for them, and I went to a management position. So now I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe that's what it is. Maybe I just need to be in a different role. So I went into management. I did that for a couple of years. Again, the people were wonderful. The job was great. But again, every day I'm waking up, I'm like, something just doesn't feel right. I just felt off. I felt unfulfilled. Mm-hmm. And it led to the point where I started getting pretty depressed, actually. It started leading to a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. It was getting very hard to go to work. I mean, I was going to work. I still got up every day. I still went to work. I still did my thing. But I was getting increasingly more unhappy. But then I met my now husband. So I meet this guy from Canada. He's down on a surf trip. We hit it off. So at least I had that moment, that little fulfillment, because I had this I met this guy, this whole thing.
Sure.
But he lived in Canada. So for 2 years, we ended up traveling back and forth long distance from Canada to Florida, Canada to Florida.
That is quite the distance, too.
It was distance, yeah. But you know what? It kept me going. It was something that was exciting in my life. It was adventurous. It was fun. It was, so it allowed me to continue along my career path, I guess.
Sure.
And feel that it was all good at that time.
Yeah. So
we weren't married at the time. He ended up moving down here. Down to Florida. We got married. And then not long after we were married and we started settling in our life, I started to feel it again. So now I'm back in regular life. I'm going to work. I have my husband, and he's a great guy. There was, everything was fine. We were newlyweds. It was good. My cat by point. not a secret drug addict, just a surf addict. He's an adrenaline addict is what he is. But and he had traveled his whole life. Like when he had gotten out of high school, he immediately went traveling. He traveled the world. He did surf trips in Australia and snowboard trips and out in British Columbia and Canada. And when I say trips, I don't mean like 2-week trips. I'm talking like 6 to 11 month trips.
Wow.
So he would work construction at home and then he would travel. And it started stirring up this need for adventure in me that I never really realized I had because I grew up in Western Pennsylvania with a single mom, not much money. We didn't even go on vacation. It was like Lake Erie was the biggest thing that we ever did. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, maybe I actually have a need for adventure or something. So we started traveling together to Central America. We'd gone to, different places in the US. We'd gone to Europe. And I'm like, I started feeling kind of fulfilled. But, Monday through Friday, I got to get up and I have to go to work and I have to, not necessarily punch a clock, but it was a structure that was set for me, rules that were set for me. Just, again, that feeling, I couldn't shake it. So he obviously had similar feelings. So we were like, you know what? We don't have kids. We're, again, young. I keep saying young. Every stage of my life, I'm like, I'm young. I can recover.
That's awesome. You're only as old as you feel, right?
Right? Whatever. So we're like, you know what? Let's just, before it's too late, let's just go for it. So we sold our house. We moved to a much smaller community in South Florida, a much more affordable community. And I have always been, I grew up as a gymnast. And so I've always been into fitness and I've loved fitness. I've been derailed multiple times in my life with beer and boys and, things of that nature. But
Sure.
I've always come back to this love of, fitness and wellness. And it just seems to really center me. And I wanted to help other women, find their power, their confidence, their strength, their everything through fitness the way I had. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to school. And when I say school, I mean like online. So I got my personal certification. I got my nutrition certification. And I started training women one-on-one. And then I really was like, I want to reach more people. So I started a women's outdoor boot camp in this new town that we were living in. And it really took off. We did because it wasn't just a boot camp. We had this whole lifestyle we built around it. We would go trapeze flying. We would do obstacle course races. We did rock wall climbing, paddle boarding every weekend, trail runs. We just did this. We did a lot of community service together too. We literally built this community of healthy lifestyle. I don't know what you call it, but it was pretty awesome. And then my husband at the time, he had started a adult kickball and volleyball. So I guess you call it adult social recreational sports.
Yeah.
So now we're building this kickball business, this volleyball business, this outdoor boot camp, these adventures. And it just turned into this adventure activity-based business that just really blew up in the community. And we were all having so much fun. I truly, truly felt fulfilled at that point in my life. And he felt fulfilled as well. It was awesome. The issue for us at that time, though, is now at this point, now I'm like 40. And we were able to live a nice life, but we weren't able to save for retirement. So we started feeling the financial limitations of what we were doing, especially with everything being outdoors. You have to deal with the weather, and it just became very challenging financially and with Mother Nature. So we started feeling kind of like, oh, we got to make a change. We have to either, get a facility, but a facility would then make me a gym. And I didn't want to own a gym. It wasn't that kind of
playing.
Absolutely, right? And the big thing I've realized now is freedom is the big thing for me. And I know freedom means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But for me, it means to be able to just, I don't know what you call it, but it was just, it was pretty awesome. The issue for us at that time, though, is now at this point, now I'm like 40. And we were able to live a nice life, but we weren't able to save for retirement. So we started feeling the financial limitations of what we were doing, especially with everything being outdoors. You have to deal with the weather, and it just became very challenging financially and with as you see, kind of go with the flow of life. And every few years, if I need to change that in order to feel fulfilled, then I need to change that in order to feel fulfilled. And I need to be able to follow my path without anything keeping me stationary, stagnant, whatever it might be. And a facility would have done that. So it would have been the most logical thing to do and the most reasonable step. And if you think about what would a person in my position do, most people probably would have gone for the facility. But I didn't. Right. Again, I felt that sensation like this isn't right. So we also had gone to the point where South Florida didn't feel right anymore. He's from Canada. I'm from Western Pennsylvania. There's so much about the North, and we never really felt home, you know? So we started exploring a lot of different options. We're like, maybe we should go out west. Maybe we should go back up north. Maybe we should move out of the country again. Costa Rica started coming up again. We're like, what do we do?
I hear there's great surfing there. I'm sure your husband would have been fine with Costa Rica.
Yeah. Before we met, he spent like 3 months there. Like, we're like, were we there at the same time? No, we weren't. But he's a little bit younger than me. So he's 4 years younger. So he was there after I was there. But so a friend of mine that I had worked with at one of my gigs that I had in South Florida, he had approached me and he was like, listen, he's like, if you guys are looking to move, he's like, I have a great opportunity for both of you to work for the same company. It was a completely different position outside of sales. So I'm like, well, maybe if I try something that isn't sales related, maybe it'll suit me better. So I got a job as a planner, which definitely falls in line with my personality traits. I very much like to organize, plan things, execute things. But it was at the same company, both good pay, great benefits. I knew the guy we were going to be working for, and he was a great guy. And it was in Pennsylvania. So I'm like, okay, we're getting closer to home now. Right. So now we're closer to where I grew up. We're closer to where he grew up. We're like, this just makes sense. Let's do it. So we did it. We moved up to Eastern Pennsylvania, and within a year, we were both like, oh my God.
What did we do?
What did we do? We're like, yeah, right? We're like, this isn't it. We're like, we had it. We knew what it was, and we questioned it. And rather than just trying to take a different path, what we were doing, we completely changed, turned it all upside down, and went and worked for this company, which we both knew in our heart of hearts that it probably wasn't going to work out. But we were kind of like, what else do we do? So we did it. And within that year, we decided, we were like, you know what? It's time to start planning our next bold move. We're like, you know what, here's the opportunity, though, to save money. This is our opportunity to, and we had started doing that right away because, one of the
that was the point.
We were thinking out about retirement. We're like, oh my God, we don't have kids. We're going to be 65 years old. We're going to be like in some state-run home, being completely neglected. Yeah, I'm going to die. Cats are going to be eating my face.
Oh my gosh.
So we're like, we need to set ourselves up financially and for our next move and for retirement. So we just started cranking away at that, coming up with, what are we doing? We knew that with the business that we had when we were in South Florida, what was the fitness, adventure, activities, lifestyle-based business, we're like, we got to do that again.
Yeah, if it worked before.
But this time, because the boot camp day, I had to be at the fields at 6 a.m. I had to be at the fields at 6 p.m. I had to be at the fields on Saturdays. I committed to show up for my group of women, and I'll be damned, I was going to show up for those women no matter what. So no vacations, no evenings off. Like it was just, and then we were running kickball. We're playing kickball. We have teams where we were creating this fun life. It was probably get the freedom and do these things that we love and share this message, because we want everybody to be able to live this really fun, charged energy life. So that's more like, let's back home to love it. He keeps us, but we can build this life where we're able to go to South Florida and visit our friends and family down there, go to Canada to visit his family, try the road, So there's so many, they've all just been leading to this place of, and it really is just feeling at peace and fulfilled is all we're trying to accomplish. And I just want other people to be able to feel that same sense of, it's like relief when you find it,
Absolutely. And that's great that you found a way to make it more sustainable and to give yourself the freedom while still maintaining your commitment to those women the way that you feel so passionate about doing. I absolutely love that. So I'm curious, in all of those bold moves, which I love, because you said like they're not super bold or they're mini bold moves.
Sorry, I know there are a lot.
No, it's okay. It's great. I think it's just a testament that shows where you're supposed to be, and you know that for sure, I guess. So I'm curious though, through all of that, and it could be something you haven't even mentioned, but what is the scariest thing you've ever done?
Scariest thing I ever is probably the scariest thing I'd ever done, because it's a commitment that I was afraid to take. But buying the house has given me more of a sense of freedom than anything that I've ever done, which sounds almost counterintuitive, but it makes me feel planted enough that I can explore while having a home base.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I know it sounds silly, but that was more scary than packing up a U-Haul at 24 years old by myself and driving to 1,900 miles away to live on my own.
I can actually identify with that because it just seems so permanent. Right now, most of my friends are buying houses or have already. And even my sister, who's 11 years younger than me, bought a townhouse. And I'm just like, how can you do that? Like, I don't even like any of the places I've ever lived enough to want. And you just think of it as forever, even though obviously it doesn't have to be. I'm like, I don't want to live anywhere.
I know, right? I know. And it's like, yeah, people do sell houses, right? I mean, we did buy a house before, and we didn't, but that I knew wasn't, it was a different time in my life, and it didn't all the time. You buy houses, you sell houses, you flip houses, you do this, you do that. When you buy a house in your hometown, that's like permanent, But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And that's kind of the thing, that everywhere I lived, it was like, But now that I'm back here, it's now I know this is where I'm meant to be. And let's just say 2 years from now, I'm like, maybe we should get an RV. let's travel and let's be full-time RVers.
We'll have you back on the show then.
Right? I figure, you know what? Yeah, you sell the house, you rent the house. People do that. So the difference was this time we went low. We made sure that we bought a house that was in a price range that would be sustainable, with not having to worry about making certain amounts of money in order to maintain it. And that was one of the big lessons that we've learned living in South Florida versus here. I had been getting myself into the position where I was getting well-paying jobs, and my lifestyle was in accordance with that.
Sure.
So I started pruning back and paring back and simplifying my life in a way that allows me to still have things that are important to me and things that I love, and do things that I love, however, not be tied down by the debt or the daily expenses that come along with it.
Sure.
So that's one of the things that are kind of being built into this new, about simplifying your health and your fitness routine and making all those things little more obtainable and necessary and that aren't important, so you can just kind of get some of those things out of the way that allow you to live the life that you want, feel good, feel energized, feel healthy. And then the rest of the time, it's like, then you can just do whatever you want, whatever brings you that joy, you know?
Yeah, I love that. This is a question. So I usually, after I ask what's the scariest thing you've ever done, I ask how you push past the fear. So you mentioned that like knowing now that you have a home base actually gives you freedom, but you obviously, or I guess not obviously, but you probably didn't know that when you were signing the papers to buy the house and it was scary. So how did you push past the fear of, oh my gosh, like I'm going to be tied down to this place forever, when you're signing those papers before you knew? Because I've heard that before too. Like I think the same attachment to freedom as you do. And one thing for me that I don't like is being overly scheduled. And so I've heard so many people say like, there's so much freedom if you just set yourself a schedule and really stick to it, because you get so much more free time. And I haven't experienced that as much as I should. So I'm almost asking for me, like, how do you get past that, like, fear of like, oh my gosh, this is tying me in one place, or this is really going to take away my freedom, when you know that, you know, potentially in the end, it's going to give you more.
You know, honestly, what it was more of a faith that I just put out there, because I could feel in my heart or my gut or whatever it was. I do a lot of meditations. A lot of that came through meditation. And I also find exercise to be very, very meditative. So while I'm working out or while I'm actually literally meditating, I could feel that this was this drive, right or wrong, whatever it's led me to here, knowing I just have to do it and then see what happens and hope that it really just works out the way that I want it to work out. But
Sure.
I've changed my life enough, drastically enough, that I knew if it didn't, then you know what, I'd figure it out.
Yeah,
but
I was just going to say, you've had enough.
Not doing it, yeah, enough experience to know, just, you know what, just follow the intuition, follow the gut, have faith that it will work out. And if it isn't what you're meant to be doing, then you kind of figure it out. And again, like right now, it feels exactly where I'm supposed to be, owning the home. Well, bank still owns the home, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Versus renting.
Sure.
That could change, and then I'll figure it out then. I've learned, and actually, I don't know if you're familiar with Marie Forleo. She's one of the people that I found on YouTube that has kind of guided me through this. As soon as I started watching her, I'm like, everything Marie Forleo does, I'm like, doing. And she has this phrase, everything is figure outable. And yes. I have definitely lived my life with that same philosophy and found it to be so true. So I think that's just how I push past the fear, where I was like, you know what, this is what feels right. Just do it and know it'll either work out. And if it doesn't, I'll figure out a way to make it something else work out.
Yeah, I love that. That makes perfect sense. And I think that's one thing that I really loved about your story, is that it's an example of that. Like, okay, like the willingness not only to try new things, but to also redirect if you need to and make something else work. And like, this is a kind of strange aside maybe, but I'm always impressed by Netflix, for example, because Netflix started out sending out one DVD at a time to people and realized the direction their business was going wasn't going to stay alive. And completely, now they're dominating with their own original content, and they're, I think, among the first to stream. And they could have easily been like Blockbuster, but without the sad locations that you see of places that are clearly old Blockbusters, you know, where they just had to rigidly stick to their business model, and they adapted. And I feel like you're like a little Netflix where you're like, oh, that doesn't work. We know that doesn't work. We're going to do something else. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And you know what? And I found too that at different phases of my life. So while maybe something was working at one point in my life, then maybe 2-3 years down the road, it no longer was working for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just something I was born with, or I just get bored easily, whatever it is. I've really learned to accept that this is how I live my life. And I've also been willing to acknowledge that, okay, when it's time for change, and just say, you know what, it's time.
Sure.
So now start really opening up my heart and my mind and really paying attention to what's around me to see what opportunities start to present themselves, to see if that shift is needed or if I'm just getting ants in my pants and I need to sit still. So yeah, because that does happen too. Yeah,
I'm sure.
So it's truly just getting to know yourself. Yeah.
In that regard, I'm curious with your husband, because it seems like you two are kind of similar. Do you sort of have to keep each other, I hate to use the phrase in check, because that sounds like a terrible relationship, but do you kind of help ground each other when?
No, it's exactly. Yes. It's funny because he's actually more of the adventurer, where he, would be traveling the world for his entire life if he could. However,
Right.
He's also got a very, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Practical side of him. That
Okay.
I'm not a very practical person. I'm much more of the free spirit, where he's not afraid to get in the water and surf with sharks and jump out of an airplane, whereas I'm like, I'm a total chicken shit with that. But I'm not afraid to completely rehaul my life and start over and be like, it'll all be fine. What are you worried about? So he's the one who is 9 times out of 10 keeping me in check and saying, all right, let's slow your roll, girl. Let's think about this. Let's talk about it. Is this something we really should be looking into, or do you just need to do you need a weekend out of town or something? So he keeps me in check for sure.
Fabulous. And so you've mentioned a few times different things, and you've used the terms like feeling right and what's in your heart of hearts, and you seem really great at being in touch with that, even, or at least most of the time. Like you said, sometimes you get ants in your pants, which I totally get.
Yeah.
As someone who's often swept
Yeah.
away by ideas. But I'm curious if you know your purpose, and if so, if you don't mind sharing it. Otherwise, if not, I know that for many people that's a really dynamic thing or a huge thing that they can't wrap their minds around. But I'm always curious to ask people that.
Honestly, I feel my purpose seems very simple, which helps simplify my life. But my purpose is to just make every person that I come in contact with feel valued and feel appreciated. And I just want to spread kindness, and, I just want to make people smile. I just want people to just have a minute where, even if it's just one moment in the day, where they're like, all right. And that's really all it comes down to. Yeah.
I love that. And I think that sometimes that it's, like you mentioned, making it a little bit more simple can make it easier, because then you're living your purpose in a lot of ways. Like, you're not just saying my purpose is to help women be healthier and lose weight or be fitter or find a fitness activity that they love, but it's something that, then that you'd be doing in your, I guess, 9 to 5, which isn't exactly what you have.
Yeah.
You can do it when you go to the grocery store, and you can do it if you have to go to the DMV, or, you can be living your purpose all the time.
Exactly, because that's the thing. It's like everything that I do is just a byproduct of my purpose. So the things that I love, I just happen to love fitness, and it has been a tremendous value to me in my life, and finding health. And listen, I am a drinker. I call it mostly healthy, So I'm not touting this huge healthy lifestyle. It's more like finding health and finding wellness in a few key areas. So I can drink a couple beers, or I can do this, or, have a pizza. Well, not a pizza, but you know what I mean? Like a couple slices of pizza.
I've had a pizza plenty of times.
Maybe I have too.
Full disclosure.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe I have, and then maybe I had cake after it too. Who knows? No,
Maybe.
but so it's just something that I share because it's a byproduct. I know it can make people feel good and feel valued and find their own internal worth. But exactly like you said, you walk outside of your house, all you have to do is smile at someone in the street or help someone with something, or at the grocery store, the DMV, wherever it may be, where people usually are agitated and frustrated or they've had a bad day. If you could just make anyone's day just a little bit better, even if it is just with a smile or a laugh or whatever, you know what, then that person, then it's that whole pay it forward with kindness thing, So that's kind of the love I like to share.
I love that. And I agree with you too. I'm very into fitness as well, and I try to eat healthy most of the time, but I like to I like to say that I do those things so I can live a long and healthy life. But are you really living if you don't have, a glass of wine or a slice of cheesecake or both?
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Exactly. I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, you mentioned Marie Forleo, as I call them for myself, a mentor from afar. That she doesn't know she's my mentor, but she's in my office exactly. Every day. So I'm curious.
Yes.
She has a lot of online programs and stuff, but I'm wondering, and I appreciate that recommendation, and I'm sure that other listeners who are interested in maybe her B school or something might be looking for that. But I always also like to ask for book recommendations for, I guess, a more old school approach. So if you have any books you'd like to share for people who would like to check out more, I'd love to hear.
I do. All right. This book right here, The Untethered Soul.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see it. Yeah.
Yep.
This book I have found to be the most profound and influential book that I have probably read in my entire life. I know that's a big, bold statement.
Yeah, that is a bold statement.
It is, and it's just, you talk about the feeling and the heart of hearts and a lot of the phrases that I use. This book has helped me discover a lot of those things, and it has just allowed me to be at peace with the person that I am, the experiences that I've had, and the path that I'm on, and just to kind of go with it and not get, bogged down by a lot of the things you think you're feeling. I don't know if that makes sense, but you're not actually, if you really get past all the layers and all the crap you've dealt with in your entire life, and you just kind of get down to the nitty gritty. Mm-hmm. Those are the feelings that really will help guide you. Of others too, but I won't bore everybody with them.
You can share a couple more.
Okay, you sure? All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, The Charge is another great one. And this will just say it all. It's activating the 10 human drives that make you feel alive. Brendon Burchard, he's has a great story, and he also, it's a very well mapped out process in order to help you find a truly charged life. There are a lot of different, I guess, like human drives, he calls them, to help discover and uncover. That's a book I love. And for those that have finding discipline, as you know, that's one of the things that I'm very focused on, is finding discipline in a few key areas, so then you can do whatever you want the rest of the time. Yeah. But the 5-second rule, Mel Robbins, sure. I am a lover of that in her, and she has such a great method if you're having a hard time just getting yourself to just do something. Yeah, that 5-second rule really helps. Gives you strategies. Yeah. So those are my 3 favorites. Yeah.
Those are fantastic recommendations. I've read The Charge. I've read most of the 5-second rule, because I actually saw Brendon Burchard and Mel Robbins speak back in September, and they're
no way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah. Brendon Burchard, if you can ever see him live, I like him so much better live than in videos for some reason. He's hilarious.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's really funny live.
Because he talks about it in his videos, how he's like, how he was how he was so terrible in video, and he practiced and he tried, and, and he said he's gotten so much better, but I guess he still has, even more room to become even better than he really is, on video than he is.
If he did his videos like his lives, game over. But
Really?
He's fantastic. He's brilliant, obviously, but like much more entertaining live than his videos.
Oh, I'd love to see him. That would be awesome. And Mel Robbins too. That must have been pretty incredible.
It was. Yeah. Put those on the bucket list.
I will, for sure. Yeah.
I love it. Well, you've given great advice already and great book recommendations, but are there any other like life lessons you want to share, something you wish you would have learned earlier, or any other just, I guess, value that you could provide to our listeners or viewers would be fantastic.
It sounds so simple, but yet it's so hard. But it honestly is just, don't sweat it. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat what other people are doing and what they're feeling and what they're thinking, because you can't control any of that. All you can do is control your response to your situation and to the people around you. I feel like if you could learn that and just live your life based on knowing you're doing what's right for you and you're being a good person, really, and you focus on that and you just will live your life.
Yeah, that's a great tip and something that I feel like I need a reminder of every day.
Don't we all, though, really? As I say it, everything I say and everything I do, it's trying to reinforce in my own brain, like, okay, in my brain and my heart, don't worry about that person. Don't worry about what they're doing. Don't worry about what they're saying. Don't worry about what they think about what you should be doing. You can't get to your own, needs and desires. And when I say needs, I don't mean selfish needs. I just mean like if you're living your life true to yourself, then you're a much better gift to everyone else around you. Let's be honest. So if you're not trying to process what everyone and everybody else is doing and saying around you, or comparing yourself, or know what's going on inside of you to be true to yourself and your calling and your purpose.
Yeah.
And to find your joy, Yeah.
I love that. And you seem to have taken quite the adventurous path towards your joy, and can definitely speak from experience on that. I love it.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm saving.
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me share.
Of course. So I've saved my favorite question for last, and that is, on a scale of 1 to 11, if little Angela back in Pennsylvania, which I guess is where you are now again, so you've made the revolve around. Yep. But if little Angela, 8-year-old, had a crystal ball and could see where you are today and everything that you've done, as well as, whatever in the foreseeable future you have planned, on a scale of 1 to 11, how excited would little you be to go on this journey?
11.
Love it.
She would absolutely be 11. Yes. It's funny because I think I had mentioned to you before that I had run a mini boot camp when I was 10 years old with my neighborhood girls, where we would get up in the morning in the summers and we would exercise, and then we would have school, and then we would, so I was literally doing this when I was 10 years old. Yeah. And now everyone that I grew up with in this town, they're all like, I knew you'd come back home and I knew you'd eventually be doing something like this. So I think little Angela would excited at a scale of 11.
I love that. That makes me so happy to hear. I love hearing 11 or more. Even though I'm a rule follower and would never say more than 11 if someone gave me 1 to 11 range. And other people, dude, I'm like, yes, go you. Your life is amazing.
I think we may be a lot alike.
Yeah. I am getting that sense too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If you're ever in Los Angeles, we'll grab a cocktail. Or workout, or both.
Let's stick with the cocktail. Yeah.
We can work out first first and then have the cocktail after. We'll see how much time we have.
Okay, that's my favorite afternoon right there.
Perfect. Well, Angela, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your incredible journey and adventures. I'm sure that it'll inspire so many people. So I really appreciate you taking the time and being willing to share yourself.
Thank you so much. I mean, it was honestly such an honor to, be chosen to do this. So at this point in my life too, right now, it feels really good. It feels really effing awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And
so
we know how important that is too.
Yes. So thank you for making me smile and making my day.
My pleasure. Hopefully you were as entertained and inspired by the adventures of Angela and her cat Harley as I was. It sounds like there are probably so many interesting stories that we didn't get to hear. So make sure you check her out on social media. That was one question that I forgot to ask her to share, is where to find her online. But worry not. As always, those details, as well as the book recommendations and any giveaways that there ever are always in the show notes. And this week, the show notes are at www.mandiem.com/episode 191, as we're on, of course, our 191st episode, and I hope that you are enjoying the journey as much as I am. I also hope that you're enjoying it so much that you want to share it with all of your friends and family and social media followers, because my goal is to inspire as many people as possible to go after their best lives and be empowered to do so, and I can't do that without your help sharing the episode, as well as letting iTunes share the episode for us by leaving hopefully a 5-star review, so that algorithm is like, hey, these people have it going on. We're going to share Mandie and all of her guests not information, whoa, that would be terrible, but stories and inspiration is what I was looking for with the whole entire world. So make sure you head over so that you can check out Angela's social media and website and pictures and all of that fun business. Now, in addition to sharing and reviewing, I would love it, of course, if you subscribed, because Angela has a fantastic challenge for you coming this Friday that you won't want to miss. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. As always, be bold and have a sparkly day. Bye-bye.